seen the like. Come on, Spolly boy. Yes, double 12. That is the most amazing leg of darts you will ever see in your life.
The most amazing leg of darts you'll ever see in your life. Unbelievable. Van Gerwen, Michael Smith. Some sort of world dart championship. We talk about this all year. Gotta learn this. Daily sports podcast, news, narratives, takes, gambling, and controversies every Wednesday. Today is Controversial Wednesday. Yesterday was a tough show. I'd say I feel bad. I frankly don't. It's just a weird show, man. I mean, the Damar Hamlin thing is tough, but I waded through it, and I talked through it. I found some experts that I used to hang out with and work with in the medical field, and got some clarity and blah, blah, blah. So we're going to talk about that. We have controversies, and we have highlights, etc. It's on YouTube. Thanks for hanging out on YouTube. I would like all of the Michigan people in the comments. They got mad at me for saying Wilton Speight was the best Michigan quarterback in the last 10 years. They all suck equally. Michigan wins the game against TCU if they had had any number of quarterbacks that Ole Miss has had over the last 10 years, and that's just one school. Also Iowa State, also Notre Dame, also about 40 or 50 other schools. If they'd had Wyoming's quarterbacks, they might win the national championship. So shut up. Here we go. You can subscribe on YouTube as well. Want to shout out Donovan Smith a couple days ago, of course. Was it Monday or Tuesday? 71 points, 11 assists, 8 rebounds against the Bulls. Of those 71, like 11 were in overtime, which you'd be like, oh, well, that's extra time. True, totally true. However, he is the reason they went to overtime. Let's watch the play. I'll bring it up on YouTube. They got to miss. This is him at the free throw line. He's got to miss the shot and then get the rebound and put it in there. 4.7 seconds left. 128, they're down by 2, right? Here we go.
He missed it.
Got his own rebound. Go to overtime. And then in overtime, just absolute crazy shit. He just goes off. He just is.
Here's
Look
Mitchell.
at him.
Just flew right past Levine. Mitchell to the basket.
The Bulls are good.
Right
the Bulls are good. I'm starting to think that perhaps that the Jazz might have liked holding on to this guy. Look at him. Little step back.
Mitchell steps back.
Scored like all the points in overtime, essentially. That's not true, but pretty close to all the points. 71. Shouts to Donovan Mitchell. That's pretty sweet, man. Gotta love that kind of thing. Okay, let's do a quick roundup, and then we'll get into Controversial Wednesday. And just not all of it's controversial, just some things that are happening. Some Donovan Hamlin, some other stuff as well. New Mexico State, we've been following them on this show, not the murder investigation for the basketball player who was jumped and then shot someone in self-defense and the coach covering it up and stuff. That's a different thing. This is the head football coach, Jerry Kill, which is a great name for a coach. New Mexico State is one of the worst programs in Division I college football, and they were on life support, man. They were a program that was going to AA, just like the University of Idaho. A lot of murder at those two schools recently in the news. The University of Idaho, I think, has dropped into the FCS rankings, and that's a good spot for them. Moscow's in the middle of nowhere. Tough to recruit there. New Mexico State's a little bit closer to El Paso. Like, there's football down there. Arizona always has good players. I think one of the best running backs in the country this year is from Arizona. But, yeah, there's a lot of good football down there. They can do better, and Jerry Kill has been extended. So good for them. I hate when it makes me sad. New Mexico State's the kind of team that takes the $2 million to go get destroyed by Alabama, and they won a bowl game. You'll have to see it, man. Shouts to New Mexico State for extending Jerry Kill. Okay, let's go to Controversial Wednesday. A couple things we're going to start with. Highlight Dana White has a video go viral of him just slapping the shit out of his wife. His wife's slapping the shit out of him. He did apologize. He said, alcohol, it's not who I am, but it very much seems like, wow, if you do this in public, you probably do this a lot in private. And the interesting part of this is going to be whether or not ESPN, who's in bed with Dana White, just absolutely obliterates him, or if they just shut up because there's so much money in UFC. My guess is they're going to shut up. That's just my guess. I imagine that they're not going to do jack shit about this, and I think that no one is because he's super rich, and that's how that goes. Domestic violence is a tricky situation because it's up to her whether or not to press charges or make this a thing, and if she doesn't want to, none of us are like allowed to. I think it's not quite that simple, but it kind of is. Other controversies, Bart Scott, who played linebacker for the Jets, went on ESPN, one of their stupid shows, and started arguing about whether or not The Damar Hamlin incident was kind of rests on the shoulders of T. Higgins, and he says it's a hit that he wants out of the game. To be very clear, if it was some sort of a rhythmic situation that was caused by any sort of contact, it just as easily, what happened to Damar Hamlin just as easily could have happened to like a hockey player with a puck, a baseball player with a baseball, or you screwing around with your family with just like a simple punch in the chest can kind of do that. It has nothing to do with the intensity of the hit or the unexpected nature of the hit, and has everything to do with the timing of the hit. The way that your heart beats, there's like I don't know if there's a millisecond or a decasecond or whatever it is. There's a brief moment in time where if you hit the chest hard enough and it makes contact with like your heart or some arteries in your lower left atrium or whatever, you can throw your heart into whack and it could just stop. It's happened before. It happened to Chris Pronger of the St. Louis Blues. It's kind of a very similar situation. He got shot in the chest with a puck, knocked him out. So Bart Scott wants this hit out of there, so people are talking about this.
Well, right before the tackle, he lowers his helmet and he kind of throws his body into his chest. He's standing up because he's thinking he's got to check his body back into him. You know, it's one of those things. A lot of times you sit as a linebacker, knows that contact's coming, so he lowers his helmet and you can't get underneath him. So he's able to get into you and your chest is exposed. So they've taken that out of the game, but they don't really regulate.
Yeah, so he wants that hit out of the game. Be very clear that if he had punched him with his elbow, it probably still happens, as long as it happens at the exact same instant. That is, and we don't know anything about the diagnosis right now, but we're going to get into that. Right now, Damar Hamlin's uncle, who knows whether or not he's speaking for the family, if he's speaking for Damar, but he did give an update. The update was, and the reason I'm so coy about this is because it didn't seem well rehearsed. It didn't seem like he was using official language. It would be good for the hospital to appoint a person to talk to people because there were, somewhere between 15 to 30 million people watching, all of whom are still freaked out by this. It would be good for the hospital to have a spokesperson say, this is the update anytime there's something worth discussing. Damar Hamlin's uncle, whether on behalf of the family or not, went in front of the cameras, NFL Network, and I think some other people to give an update. For example, he's been reduced from 100% oxygenation to 50% oxygen. All that means is that he's being weaned off of the ventilator. It's neither good nor bad. It just is what they're doing. They're trying to figure out what's going on. He's also been proned. That's the word that you use, prone. He said flipped on his stomach, prone. And if all of you who have survived the COVID-19 pandemic understand that being prone means that there's a problem with your lungs. It's called ARDS, which is acute respiratory distress syndrome, which means he can't quite breathe on his own. They're trying to help him. He didn't use any of this language. He didn't give any scientific updates. He just kind of said that. And I think at a certain point it's so weird when you want to talk about patient privacy because everyone wants to know what the fuck is going on and if we can go on with their lives. But also it's not our right to know. He's a person. So it's kind of a tricky situation. I do think that there is a risk of people in his circle taking their 15 minutes of fame here, and this could kind of get away from us and become a weird, gross situation. So it would be smart of the hospital to kind of do some PR and some damage control and just be like every whatever, we'll leak an update or we'll have a conference or a conference call with ESPN and the NFL Network and whoever else so that we can just give factual updates and tell you what's going on as the family okays it. Like, obviously, everything's with the family. They would never violate HIPAA, of course. But this kind of, that update, that's a non-update. The update his uncle gave is a non-update. He's getting better. He's getting worse. He's not conscious. Like, it's, I don't know. Kind of wish he hadn't said anything, to be honest with you. They're working on it. They're working on him. And that's all they can do. So the vibe that is in the NFL right now is that the Bills are not going to play the game until they know the long-term prognosis of Damar. The people I spoke to, who I know, and I do have quite a few sources in the medical world, they're like, not anytime soon. And by that I mean, it's unlikely that it'll happen in the next like 6 to 24 hours. It'll be like 3 or 4 days. This does not appear to be a situation like with Mike Leach or other people who've experienced brain death. But again, we don't know because he's being prone. They're trying to figure this out. He's on ARDS. He's probably going to get ECMO or some sort of ventilator situation. Who knows, man? I mean, he had a cardiac arrest. He received life-saving care within 90 seconds, which is amazing. They had an IV in him. They were doing compressions for 9 minutes. They had him oxygenated. They were comfortable enough in the ambulance to allow his mom to enter the ambulance. If it was really a situation where he was going to die momentarily, then they would not have waited for his mom in the ambulance, quite frankly. They would have sped off and said, figure it out yourselves. But they waited for her. That means they had him in a situation where they were comfortable waiting a couple minutes for his mom to come down. So the care team is great. And I also want to point out that for this care team, for us, it very much this seems like a unprecedented holy shit situation. The only unprecedented nature about this situation, it's twofold. Number one was that everyone was watching. Millions and millions of people were watching, and tens of thousands of people were watching live. And number two, that there were trained medical staff there when it happened. Most people who experience this have no chance because no one's there, and they don't know how to do CPR if they are there. So learn how to do CPR. That's been something I'm trying to shout from the rooftops. So learn CPR for sure. But the unprecedented nature is that they happen to be there so quickly. But for them, this is not a crazy thing. This is a routine ground ball for those guys. They trained for years and years and years and years under insane conditions so that when they play the hot corner in the big leagues, they know exactly what to do, and they did it probably perfectly. That certainly appears like they did it perfectly. And just based on the reports that are coming out of medical people, it seems like his brain may have only been without blood and oxygen for like maybe 2 minutes, which is crazy. That's amazing. That's unfucking believable if that's true. So yeah, that's the Damar Hamlin update. Those are my thoughts. That's sort of what I know what's going on. It just feels like it's going to be a couple days. If he's on ARDS, it's just going to be a while. Like, they got to figure out his lungs got to work. They're going to work on his lungs. Who knows, man? Yeah, so just I think as far as resuming normal NFL action, my gut feeling says that the Bills are not going to play until they know if he's going to, frankly, live or die. And that seems totally fair. The NFL season, if I had to guess, people are kind of suggesting maybe just delay everything a week. Who knows? So, okay, let's move on. Controversial Wednesday, the last thing I want to kind of touch on and just throw out there. Everybody remember Tyler Skaggs was the Los Angeles Angels pitcher who overdosed on a fentanyl-laced opioid pill, a counterfeit oxycodone. It was acquired for him by the director of communications for the team at that time, Eric Kay. Now, Eric Kay has been sentenced to 22 years in prison for this, but now the Skaggs family, in the course of the legal investigation, it came to light that this K person had been supplying other members of the team with opioids. Those people I don't think have been named publicly, and if they have, I don't know. But now the Skaggs family is going to sue the Angels. That guy, Eric Kay, used team email addresses. There are also other players that were involved, so this means that this is becoming a conspiracy a little bit. At the time, Matt Harvey, the pitcher from the Mets, and he was in the Angels at the time, he supplied Tyler Skaggs and maybe other people with other either legit or counterfeit opioid pills. So it seems like this is like a little bit of a ring happening in the Angels. I'm not alleging that. That's what the Skaggs family is alleging. So we're going to pay attention to this criminal trial. It'll take forever, but it's going to be nasty. This is going to be a flashpoint of the opioid epidemic. I think as many as like a dozen players were getting opioids from either Kay or Matt Harvey, which is that's wild. To be frank, that's wild. That's a lot. That's a lot of people on a baseball team. That means they all know where the drug dealer is. So, yeah, a lot to talk about there. Pat McAfee and the Detroit Lions are at war because Pat McAfee submitted a request to the Detroit Lions public relations to interview Dan Campbell ahead of their Sunday Night Football showdown against the Green Bay Packers. Every Tuesday, Aaron Rodgers is hanging out with him, and then Pat McAfee threw a fit and was like, I can't believe they want to do that, and he insinuated if they lose that on Monday, Pat McAfee's going to talk shit on the Lions. He then apologized because the Lions fans and everybody was like, dude, what are you doing? I'm going to read a line from his apology. He goes, this is so great. Right in the middle here. We have a great time of year of football coming up. I would like to be additive to folks enjoying it, ... I was acting like a baby back spoiled bitch in that clip, and I watched back from earlier. That ain't me. The current spirit of the perspective, I felt obligated to say this to Foxy, that's his co-host, the Lions and Lions PR. I was acting like a baby back spoiled bitch. I feel like just quoting him next time a celebrity has to apologize is probably the move, huh? I was acting like a baby back spoiled bitch. That's what was going on with McAfee and why he was trending yesterday and why Lions fans hated him. For what it's worth, the Lions have almost unanimously the best PR and social media setup in the game. There's a reason why Jamal Williams and all those guys go viral all the time, because they're legit. All right. Like, rate, review, subscribe. Thursday Night Football is over. College football's got one game left, so start digging into some NFL or NBA and NHL storylines this week. All right. See you tomorrow.